During the Middle Ages, the notion of divine judgment stood at the heart of certain judicial customs. Foremost among these was the ordeal. In the ordeal, a physical challenge was thought to expose guilt or innocence through God's direct will. For pregnant women accused of adultery, fornication, or unlawful conception, this process was enforced with grim simplicity. One of the most thoroughly recorded forms was the ordeal of boiling water. Described in detail within the 9th century legal codes of the Carolingian Empire, the accused was required to draw a ring or stone from a cauldron of boiling water. Her hand would then be wrapped and left untouched for 3 days. If it healed cleanly, she was proclaimed innocent. If it became infected, she was judged guilty. This ordeal was particularly merciless toward pregnant women. The injury, together with poor nourishment, often led to miscarriage or deadly infection. Nevertheless, both secular and church authorities accepted the result as the expression of divine will. At times, the ordeal took the form of carrying heated iron. The woman had to walk a fixed distance, clutching a glowing bar. If the burns healed smoothly, she was acquitted. If not, punishment followed swiftly, ranging from scourging to lifelong imprisonment. In a culture where honor outweighed mercy, pregnant women found no exemption. The verdict of such trials was never truly theirs to shape. It belonged to the fire, the water, and the silence of the church. Branded as adulteresses before the crowd. A pregnant woman, exposed and trembling, tied to a wooden post in the village square. The people look on, wordless, as the executioner raises a searing iron. In a single stroke, her flesh is marked forever with the scar of adultery. This was no invention of fiction. In parts of medieval Europe, public branding was an accepted penalty for women accused of moral offenses, especially when their pregnancy made their shame visible. Throughout the High and Late Middle Ages, the laws of Christian Europe treated female virtue as a pillar of public morality and social discipline. When conception occurred outside wedlock, it stood as visible proof of sin, and often of legal fault. Local courts and church tribunals imposed punishments that mingled humiliation, pain, and spectacle. In regions of France, the customary laws of Normandy and Brittany recorded that women charged with adultery might be branded upon the cheek or brow with burning iron. This practice was meant to stamp their supposed moral defilement forever. Such ordinances drew from Roman precedents where branding, stigma, had long been used to disgrace enslaved or lower-born women accused of moral crime. In 13th century England, church courts oversaw numerous cases of fornication, particularly when a woman was discovered pregnant without a husband. Though branding occurred less frequently there than on the continent, public penance was customary. This often required walking barefoot through the streets, clothed in a white sheet, sometimes with a rope about the neck, while declaring the sin aloud, a practice recorded in archdeaconry court rolls from cities such as York and London. Meanwhile, within the Holy Roman Empire, especially across the German-speaking lands, branding continued to be a lawful sentence for adultery and premarital conception well into the 15th century. Theologians like Thomas Aquinas defended such penalties as essential for preserving divine order. In his Summa Theologiae, he maintained that carnal sins are especially shameful, not because they are the most serious, but because they debase reason, the highest power of the soul, by surrendering it to bodily appetite. Though the pleasure is momentary, the disorder it breeds in the soul, he cautioned, endures. In the medieval imagination, the body of a pregnant woman could become a public stage for honor, control, and moral authority. Branding was more than a wound. It was a proclamation, seared into flesh, declaring that the laws of the community were written on skin as much as parchment. Discipline for unlawful pregnancies. Public whipping as penance began in monastic austerity, yet spread widely through both secular and ecclesiastical courts by the 12th century, particularly across Western Christendom. When a woman conceived outside marriage, her offense was judged not only a personal sin, but a visible disruption of Christian order. Because pregnancy was taken as undeniable proof of fornication, she was frequently punished without further inquiry or defense. In medieval England, documents from the York ecclesiastical courts recount instances where women accused of fornication, especially when expecting, were sentenced to perform public penance, often through barefoot processions in penitential dress. Similar customs appeared in the consistory court registers of Ely and Exeter, where repentant women paraded through their parish on feast days, confessing their wrongdoing before all. These rituals aimed to heighten public humiliation and enforce virtue through discipline. Corporal punishment such as whipping was more typical within secular tribunals. The Church defended such practices as means of spiritual correction. Peter Damian, an 11th century reforming cardinal, claimed that physical anguish was a small cost for saving one's soul. In his writings, he praised flagellation as a holy act of penance, teaching that chastising the body could ward off eternal ruin, a doctrine he linked directly to Christ's own scourging. Pregnant women, however, endured a doubled sentence. Their bodies were not only punished, but condemned as corrupting both themselves and the life within. In the medieval world, an illicit pregnancy drew no pity. It was answered with the whip, each lash intended to purify the spirit, yet in truth, revealing a system that turned women's bodies into arenas of torment, disgrace, and forced repentance. Confined in monastic cells until birth. Behind the thick wooden gates of medieval convents, not every woman entered of her own will. For those accused of moral failings, particularly nuns who had broken their vows or unmarried women from respectable families, monastic imprisonment often served as punishment. These confinements were far from holy retreats. They were enforced isolations where silence, austerity, and enclosure replaced the whip. By the 12th century, throughout Western Europe, both families and civic officials sometimes consigned women who conceived outside marriage to convents or monastic chambers, seeking to contain scandal and maintain moral order. Though not always decreed by formal judgment, such seclusion functioned as social correction, meant to protect public virtue and remove the woman from temptation, reflecting the Church's growing authority over private morality and discipline. After the Gregorian reforms of the late 11th century, ecclesiastical control over clerical and monastic life intensified. Should a nun become pregnant, the act was viewed as a grave desecration of her vow of chastity. In many instances, she might be locked within her convent, sometimes for life, as a form of penance and confinement. The Council of London in 1102 demanded stern atonement for moral offenses among the clergy, though the severity of discipline differed by region and church jurisdiction. Yet the same practice reached beyond convent walls. Across Flanders, northern France, and parts of the Holy Roman Empire, civic and religious authorities occasionally ordered unmarried pregnant women, particularly from noble or merchant lineages, to be confined within monastic cells until they gave birth. This was not out of care or protection, but to hide disgrace and ensure the child could later be removed or raised in secrecy. Conditions in these confinements were harsh. Women sent to Benedictine or Cistercian houses for penance after moral scandal lived in bare cells, survived on meager food, and were bound to prayer and silence each day. In some areas, especially northern France, women remained imprisoned until childbirth, after which the infant might be given to a foundling home or religious institution. Church officials defended this isolation as merciful, a shield against shame and sin, yet in truth it worked to regulate women's bodies and conceal the visible traces of what society deemed moral failure. Exiled from villages for immoral pregnancies. No hearing, no defense, only a cold command from elders or the parish priest. Leave and never return. For many pregnant women in the Middle Ages, especially those without husbands or protection, exile was not merely a threat, but a practiced rule. To be visibly pregnant and unmarried often meant complete expulsion from one's home, under threat of excommunication or physical punishment for defiance. This policy spread widely across late medieval Europe, particularly in small rural communities where Christian virtue was deeply bound to local reputation. Inhabitants were expected to obey rigid moral codes, and an unwed pregnant woman stood as a living disruption of both spiritual and communal order. In regions such as Norfolk and Suffolk, these women were often treated as having lost their moral worth within the community. In medieval society, exile functioned as both punishment and erasure. A sinful pregnancy rendered a woman untouchable, her presence seen as incompatible with the moral fabric of village life. In banishment, she disappeared, out of sight, out of memory, stripped of belonging and safety in the very place that once claimed her. Through enforced trials, public disgrace, and exile, medieval society inflicted deep suffering on pregnant women, exposing how law, religion, and communal fear combined to discipline the body and silence the soul.